Hello and welcome back to the studio for another sugarcraft tutorial. This week we've got one based on Cinderella for you. Now, lots of us know the movies that have been made by Cinderella, but I think go look up the original fairy tale because it is quite different. And I'm not going to tell you how because I reckon that we might not then be able to have this as a family-friendly video. Lovely little flowers in this one using lots of lovely colours and wee little pumpkins, which are super cute. And of course, for all that I've used them in a floral posy here, there's nothing stopping you using those little pumpkins in other cake designs if you're making a wee garden or something like that. So I hope you enjoyed the tutorial and do give us a like and subscribe to the channel. Should we start with the rose? That feels like as good a place as any other.
Yeah.
So these ones, they're only little baby ones. So they're on these silly bags. They split and then you wonder why your paste is drying out. In fact, from a general point of view, just so that you're in the loop, I'm going to be using normal modelling kit, so sort of Dresden tool, knife, cutting wheel, rolling pin and so on. I've got 28, 24 and 26 gauge wire. All the blues and oranges, because those are our colours. And then the only cutters I'm using is an 8cm rapid rose cutter, 5-petal cutter there, and our multi-hydrangea set. This one looks funny because there was a time when I was cutting out millions of these and it really hurt, so I was just I just covered it with gaffer tape so it would hurt my hands less, so it's not anything else. Let's mix up a little bit of this colour just so that I can show you. And to get this colour here, we want some orange and some yellow. And to be honest, just a little bit, such a little bit that I'm actually just going to do that on the side of the pot there. We'll mix that in. And you can see very pale orange colour there, but we want it a little bit yellower. And the only reason for doing that is just so that it is different than the orangey orange of our pumpkins. So I'm just going to do the same thing, because we only need a tiny little bit in there and it's only a little bit of paste. Like so. And that gives us that pale peach but with a leaning towards the yellow tone. So I'll mix these together and we'll do our rose. So for a rose that size, we just need 2 of these and an extra petal. And I am doing this on a 20mm ball that I've hot glued to a cocktail stick. This one's on a cocktail stick. The ones that I made earlier are on a 20 gauge wire. You can use whatever you like. I've used those because that's what came out of the cupboard first. And I glue them, I use a hot glue gun, so just like a little £5 jobby out of Hobbycraft or the range or somewhere like that. Take your polystyrene ball, squeeze a spot of glue on it and then just insert your stick or wire through the glue and then it will set and it's nice and solid. So I'm just going to roll out the bits here. But yeah, so they are opposite on the colour wheel. In fact, a little bit of colour is just here. So they're opposites, the blue and the orange.
Yeah,
so they
no,
I just said so they pop. And yeah, peach and pale blue, it's using that same relationship. So they pop, but you know, it's a softer pop because they're paler colours. So yes, definitely gold stars all round. Jane, his little hat is coming. I'm just rolling out my bits and pieces first. Lovely colour and pop to it. Right, so I've got 2 whole ones and then we just need 1 single petal. So I'm just going to pop that there and cut just a piece of the shape, trim away the excess so that we've got a single petal. And actually I've missed a corner there, but I'm not going to worry about it too much. So, little ball to make a wee cone. I'm going to wet the top of the polyboard there, or at least I will if anything wants to come out the water pen. There we go. And I'm just going to squidge it on to give the polystyrene ball a little hat, like so. And you can see you don't need to be too tidy about it. The reason we do that is twofold. The first one is that it obviously makes our ball a bud shape. The reason I do it this way is because it is it's much cheaper with the balls than the buds, basically. And the other reason is that that little gap you get on your first petal is going to be looking down on the same colour as the rest of the rose instead of looking onto the white polystyrene. And I can see, I saw your comment, Dickie. It's kind of gross actually when you think about it. Like having the whole town try on one shoe.
Yeah, it seems a bit obsessive, really.
Yeah, a bit weird.
It's only met once.
The trick with this is to make sure you just want to make it a teardrop that's nicely in proportion. So you don't want your cone too short so that it's got a really shallow angle on it. And you don't want it too tall so that it's got a really tall angle on it. You want it in the middle where it's sort of just right. I'm going to take my single petal first. Nice big ball tool. And we're just going to go around the edges there.
Did you change to a big ball? One request?
Or
is that going to mess up later?
I won't, because everything now will be on the petal pad for this. So we're going around the edge and you're looking for a soft wave. You don't want to make it too frilly, you just want a nice soft wave. And then we're going to turn it over. With our roses, we always turn everything over. When you use the ball tool, it curls up towards you. So by turning it over, it means that when you then attach it onto the bud, when you lift each petal up and attach them, it means that things are curling away from the centre, which is what we want. First petal, the way I do it, goes on sideways, and that's really, really important. The reason that I do it that way is it just means that you get a much longer length to wrap round, instead of trying to get it all the way around with the top. So I'm going to wet the bottom, and just remember that that is the bottom sideways. And in fact, if I give that, there you go, you can see where the water is just there. We were just speaking about it somewhere around town with everyone having a try on, yeah. Right. Put the petal on. So can you see that the end of my bud is there? So I've got 1/2 centimetre, 1/4 of an inch, something like that, of petals sticking up. And the first thing we'll do is bring in the pointy side like that. We can do a little bit of extra water there just to hold that in. And then we will bring the other side round.
Is that a 20mm ball you're using there?
It is a 20mm ball.
There we go.
And again, a little extra bit of water just to hold that down. And the trick here, can you see that it is a cone shape? So you're coming round and down and round and down so that you make a cone. Instead of having it standing up straight like a bishop's hat, you want it wrapped round to make a cone so that it's thinner at the top. The other thing that you can do, take a pokey tool. I like the fatter spoon end of the Dresden to come, and if you just poke the inside in a bit more, that's going to really help you get that little inner spiral. So that is our first step. This is the hardest bit, I think everybody always says. So it'll take a little bit of practice, but like I always say with flowers, you've got to find that balance as you do it between following the steps, but then also looking at what it is that you're doing and making sure that as you follow them, you're getting the effect you want, which in this instance is that sort of tighter bit at the top, and just a nice tight curl that spirals in on itself. So we're going to work with one of our full 5 petals, and again we're just going to come and go around the edges here. This same deal, we're looking for a nice soft wave as opposed to making it too frilly, because if it's too frilly it's going to go off and do its own thing. And if you're super new to flowers, the trick with the ball tool is you want it half on the paste, half off, so that it's right on the edge there. If you do it inside the edge, then what happens, like that one there if you can see, oh, throwing it around, it will make a cup, and we don't want it to be cupped, we just want the edge to be thinned and frilled out slightly. So you want it half on, half off, and with like a reasonable amount of pressure. This is where our rapid rose pad comes in. This is our little green baby that makes all of this easy, basically. Pop the petals on there upside down, because remember, everything with your rose you're turning it over. We'll wet the centre, and then you want to do a little line about halfway up the edge of each petal. Once I've done this, I will give it, oh, there it is, so you can see that just there, it's about halfway up the edge of each petal. And then we'll put the bud through the middle, like so. The most important thing to do with this is how you hold it under here, right? Don't, in fact, do you want to swap to the front? It might be easier to show this. Don't hold it like this, because then when you put pressure here, it's just going to move underneath you. Make sure that you're holding it, pinch it in your fingers and hold it really well, is the most important thing. Could I swap back, please? That's all right. So yeah, make sure you're holding it nice and firmly. And what we're going to do with this row is use 2 petals first to make the inner ones, and then the remaining 3 will make another row of petals. So start with any petal and attach one side of it like that. So can you see that I've attached just one side and the other side is hanging open? Spin it round 180 degrees, take another opposite petal and attach the same side from the petal's perspective, so that you've now got 2 little wings. You're going to take the open side of this one and bring it round on top there, and then we'll take the open side of that one and bring it round on top there. If you need a little extra water, which I do because that doesn't want to stick, we can do that. And that is the first row of petals. You can then come, give them just a little tweak, curl them out slightly if you want, whatever you prefer. We can now do the next row, and we're going to do exactly the same thing but with the 3 that are left. So we'll attach one side, spin it round a little, attach the same side of the next petal, spin it round again and attach that third one. So now we have 3 little wings standing up there. One other thing to note, I have always had much better success with this. I always find it much easier, and I always do it this way, lifting the petals and pressing them with my fingers this way instead of lifting it up and pressing it with my thumb. And it is something to do, I believe, with the fact that you just have better control over your body and your muscles when you're coming towards yourself instead of away. So I always do it that way. If you're left-handed, you just mirror the process. So whereas this one will curl clockwise, goes around this way, you would just do it back to front and it goes counter. We did do that. If anyone can remember which one it was, I did do it in one video, because I can do it, but I have to think about it very hard. Because it's mirroring what I'm right-handed, so it's mirroring what I do. And I can't remember, there was one when we did it for someone. But yes, so just make sure you're doing it that way. Once you have your 3 little wings stood up, we're then going to bring that one on top there, this one on top here, and this one, a little bit of extra water because I'm talking lots, on top there. And you can see how quickly we have made a rosebud. So we can turn it over. You're going to have some weird pointy corners down there. Just squash them down, don't worry about that. And then at the top here, you can come and just curl those edges back ever so slightly. which you can either just curl them, or sometimes I'll actually sort of roll it in my fingers, whatever works for you. If you want to open it out a little bit more, again, spoon end of the Dresden, we can just come and give everything a little bit of a poke and a prod. The single most important thing when you're making roses, and this is any rose, not just my roses, do not squash the top, okay? The ball in here is nice and strong, so that is where you can press your petals down. The flower paste, and you've got to be using flower paste for this, remember, as opposed to, you don't want modelling paste, you don't want fondant, you definitely want flower paste. The flower paste is strong enough to stand up. It's adhered here, you can see where it's stuck on, which is going to give it enough support, and that ball is solid, so you can press as much as you want there, just don't squash the top. Everybody's tendency, especially when they begin or the first time you do or whatever, is that you're worried it's going to fall apart, so you start squashing the top, right? That is going to give you the wrong look, because the thing with the roses is, let me grab this slightly bigger one here, that it is the gaps in between the petals that are as important as the petals and what make it look realistic. So make sure that you keep the gaps, don't squeeze it. The other thing that the gaps do is that they give you those lovely shadows, which is why this one, I haven't dusted this or anything, but you can see it looks deeper in the centre already, and it's just because of the build up of the shadows, because it has enough gaps so that you can see where the light reaches and where it doesn't reach by virtue of the gaps. So just don't squash it. I implore you, don't squash it. In fact, imagine me coming along and giving you a slap wrist. Right, so my second row of petals now, or my second shape, which is actually our fourth row of petals technically. I'm going to do the same thing, so I'm coming around the edges there and just giving them that nice soft wave. Like so. And then what I usually do for this one, in fact it's starting to crack because it's drying out, is I will come and just curl those edges back a little bit to start with. And you can see there is none of this business with a cocktail stick, but of course if you wish to use a cocktail stick then you can do. I tend to just do it with my fingers because it's just a little bit, and we'll adjust the petals once they're on the rose as well. It's just starting it off basically like that. Now this stage, if we were doing a bigger rose, especially for you, Isla, and what you were saying about with the Smart Flex, I would definitely leave this to set a little while, 100%, because otherwise this next step is going to be really difficult. So I would definitely leave it to set. This is going to be our next row. The ones that I made earlier, I've got a bud and a bigger one, so if you wish you can leave this just as it is to be a little bud, but I'm going to show you guys adding the next one on. There has been lots of chatting, I'm very sorry, Christopher. I'll show you the next one, but yeah, you could leave it like that as a bud. So rapid rose, he's going to go upside down just there. I'm going to do the same thing, water in the middle and that little line on each edge, like so. Which again, if I give that little wiggle, you can see it in the light there. I'm going to pop that through. And then this time we're going to do it ever so slightly different. So same deal, lift it up and attach the one side. We will then lift up the next one and attach the one side. But the difference is that straight away we'll take the open edge here and press it onto that one there. And again, that one goes just inside, that presses on just there, this one goes just inside, that presses on there, this one goes just inside, that presses on there, and then if we've done it right, our last bit that's open will go on top of our first one that we attached. And that, my friends, is that.
Right.
Right.
And also, can you just show those specific what cutter we had used? There are cutters.
So there are rapid rose cutters. It's I used the 8cm one, but the set we do comes with 6 cutters, which is a 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and 12cm. It comes with a tutorial that has it all in, and it's all in the book as well. This one I do on a 25mm ball. This one I do on a 25mm ball. These 3, which is the 7, the 8 and the 9, I tend to do on a 20mm. And this one I just make a wee little like 15mm bud. Somebody asked before about how many rows I do with the same size. The key is that each row is the same size cutter. That is the important thing. This one and this one have exactly the same number of petals, arranged in exactly the same way, so proportionally they are identical. It's just that one has used, hang on, that's the little cutter, that's the big one. So like I said, exactly the same number of petals, it's just you've made the whole thing bigger. And that's why they look nice, I think, because if you started off with a little one like this and just made bigger and bigger and bigger petals, what happens is that eventually the big petals on the outside swamp the middle, whereas using the same size cutter, it forces them to open. You end up from the side, oh, this one's broken, hang on, I hadn't even noticed. Who's this one? You end up from the side, can you see it's ever so slightly domed? That's because it's the same size cutter, and it's what makes them look bloomed and opened, and is why you can see on all of these, it's the gaps. It's all about the gaps. So don't squash the top, it will stay. If you need to leave your 5-petal cuts out for a little while so that they can set up enough that when you attach the petal here and here it sticks, then leave them to set up. Just don't squash them. Balanced and it just sort of fell over. Right, nothing broke. Yeah, 2 shades of blue that I've used, so I will show you how to mix those up. The darker blue is made with cyan and purple, so that's those 2, and the paler blue is just the cyan. So I'm going to make the whole thing cyan, make a couple of berries, and then we'll add in our purple to do the other blue. So we want a nice pale colour. Yeah, Nikki, you know it. So for the berries, that's it. Just a tiny little bit of colour in there. And you can see, so we've just got this very pale sort of icy blue, which we're going to dust up with some sort of silvery metallics at the end. So I'll show you a couple of berries, and then I will show you the little ruffle fillers. I do need a lighter for the candle, and we want some 28 gauge wire for these. So berries, they're only little, so we can put them on the 28 gauge. Wires are, the higher the number, the thinner they are. The thinner they are, the less weight they can carry. So the thing that dictates the thickness of the wire that you need is how heavy the thing you're attaching to it is. And of course the berries are only little, so you don't need too thick a wire. We can do it on the 28 gauge. And you're probably wondering, why has this crazy woman just lit a candle for the cake making? Well, we're going to take a little ball, let's move that out of the way, and we're just going to roll a couple of little balls, right? And the trick to rolling nice even balls is you want a super soft paste, and you want to pop a little bit of petal base or veggie fat on your fingers and then roll it firmly in your palm. And the thing is that you want to roll it hard enough that you sort of squash it back into itself so that you don't get any funny little lines on it. So the purpose of the candle is to heat up the end of the wire. I've got messy hands now. Heat up the end of the wire so that when we insert it into our little berry, it's going to melt the flour paste and melts the sugar and keeps it on. So I'm just going to hold it in the flame until it heats up and then insert it. And if you see that puff of smoke and that little hissing noise, that is what you want. And actually this one here has perfectly gone wrong for me to show you what to do if it goes wrong. So in fact, let me do another one. There we are. So I'm just going to insert that in there. And you want it so that, that'll be the hairs off the back of my hand. There's a tiny little bit of wire sticking out at the top. If you find that, put that in. If you find that it just sort of takes the paper and burns a chunk of the way down like this, if you can see that just there, heat it up anyway. Insert the berry, but push it all the way down to where the paper's fresh again. So you can see I've got this silly long bit sticking up at the top, which we're just going to cut off. And no one would ever know that your paper had run away and burned. It's worked quite so well. We want this darker blue now. So we're going to pop some more of our blue colour in here, which, like I said, I'm being supremely lazy and just tapping it on the edge of the pot. You could totally do it with a cocktail stick or something. But as you can see, what this has done is given us a really bright sky blue, which we don't want. That's the colour that we want there. So we're going to add some purple. If we refer to our colour wheel, here's your cyan, there's your purple. We want something that's sort of in betweenish here, so we're going to tone down that really bright blue with a little bit of purple. And I would do this just a bit at a time because you can always add more, but you can't take it away. And you can see how that colour transforms, and it just dulls down a little bit. It sort of takes the blueness off the edge, and actually that slightly flatter blue and then that pale cyan blue that we did the berries go together really well. So we're going to do some little of these ruffle flowers. They are entirely made up. I use them in everything. They feature in our filler flowers class if it's something you would like to know more about. But I will show you guys quickly now. And I'm going to use these. This is the Blossom Sugar Art Hydrangea cutter set. It is one of my all-time most favourite bits of kit because it's just so versatile. They come as a set of 3 cutters and you get a veiner with them, which we're not using today. But they really are very, very useful. So to begin with, I'm just going to roll out my flower paste. Just there. You want it relatively thin. It doesn't need to be like paper thin, but you don't want it too thick either. It's a really nice colour, this. It's like, it's almost, if it was a little paler, it would be the Peter Rabbit's jacket blue.
Yeah.
So I'm going to pop some cornflour front and back. And then we need to cut these in pairs. So if I can get one of each, I will show you. And by one of each, I mean 2 of each size because you need a pair. I'm going to pop these onto my petal pad. And then take a ball tool and just come round the edges. And can you see I'm putting no attention into it whatsoever. You just want to thin them and frill them. This is not a precision exercise. If you've one of our rolling pins that has a rounded end, then you can in fact use
Smush it.
that. And I quite like doing it like this because right, so they go in pairs like so, and we just need to prepare some wires for them. So these I'm going to do on 24 gauge. So 24 gauge is a nice medium thickness. It's not super thick, but it's not too thin either. The flowers aren't too heavy, but you don't want to put them on 28 and have them moving around because of the weight on there. But equally, you don't want them on anything too thick, because otherwise when you're arranging, if you want to move something, there's nothing worse than you push it, and because you've got like a 20 gauge wire or something on there, you break the flower rather than move it because of the resistance from the wire. So these are on 24 gauge, and I'm going to just cut this bit into quarters more or less. For these we need what I like to call a double hook. So I'm going to make a little hook one way. So the hook you see there, it's flat, and then what I'm going to do is bring it up this way so that you end up with a bit of a knob on the end, basically.
Knobbly bit.
Like so. This next one, what I'll do is I'll do it really big just so that you can see. So do it the one way and then do it the other. So you can see the shape that it's made there, but obviously you don't want it this big, it just wants to be little. So let me unbend that. And of course you could do this, if you preferred, with a pair of pliers. I, however, am blessed with fingernails like a rhinoceros, so I can do it with my fingers. So we've got little knobs on the end, and then in the pairs do a spot of water in the middle and put the second one on top at 90 degrees. Pop a spot of water on there, and again that goes on top at 90 degrees. And then we'll do this last one. So first tip for doing these, because I know that someone was saying, that Isla was saying she was struggling, make sure that you press this down really well, because if you don't press it down really well at this point, when you fold them up, what happens is that that top one sort of slides up and it will move around too much. So just make sure that it's well attached. And then you're going to come and paint a little cross or an X on each one, and if I give that a wee wibble, you'll be able to see it just there. Basically for these, so these are, like I said, they're in a couple of the online classes and they're in the book, Flower Book. It's like one of these little, yeah, it is. Which, Diane, what was it that we called it? The origami method, was it?
No, it wasn't that. I can't remember what
it was something, but yeah, like one of those fortune teller things, right? That's what we called them. Everybody knows what I mean, but one of those paper things. Because what we're effectively trying to do is bring the four corners of the flower together so that by pushing the bottom, the top opens up. And that is how you get one of these, right? So we can do it. You can do it like this. So I'm just going to put the wire through the middle, bring it down. The wire is just dangling in my hand. I'm just going to ignore it. Note that it is on my fingertips, not on the sides of my fingers. If you do it with your hand like this, it's going to be really difficult with it on the side because you won't be able to get your other hand in. So it needs to be on the top. Half squash it with your first hand, bring your other hand in and lift those up. Release the first and squash with the second. If you don't like doing it with the wire in, the other way that you can do it is to do it without the wire. So again, fingertips, half squash, other hand comes, squash and release. And you see it's when you press at the bottom, it sort of pings it up. And then what you can do is put the wire in afterwards. You just need to make sure it's not so much about finding the middle of the flower as it is about finding the thickest part of the paste. What you don't want to do when you push that through is to end up doing this, because can you see it's not gone through the thick bit? So you just got to make sure It goes through the thickest part of the paste like that. And then just give it 1 squash, 2 squashes. That's it. Don't mess with the underneath because it will fall apart. That's yeah. Thing is that you wouldn't be using these in a floral competition. Anyway, I've used them on competition cakes for weddings, but you wouldn't do it for a floral competition because they're not a real flower, which means that nobody is going to be looking at or worrying about the back of them. When they're on your arrangement, you can't see that bit. So yeah, Jane, 100%, no faffing is the trick, because otherwise they will fall off. The other important thing with these is that you don't want your paste to be too dry, because if it's dry, when you try and scrunch them underneath, it's going to crack instead of bend and mould and shape. So if you feel like your paste is drying out a bit, abandon that and start with a fresh bit. This is left over from the roses, and I'm just going to put some more orange in it. Right, so more orange. Maybe even a little bit more than that. Let's do it properly with a wee knife. Oh, I think this may have been a bit too generous. Never mind. Let's see. Okay, they're a bit brighter than the other ones, but that doesn't matter. So pumpkins, very simple to do.
If you wanted to take that back to white a little bit, what would you do?
You could just add some white to it, or you'd take another blob of white and you'd add about half of this, and that would give you a paler colour. Alternatively, well, I've got some more of my rose colour left, so I could mix some more of that in, but this will be fine. Just to show you, I think, I don't know, I might do that. Oh gosh, there's a hole in my bag. Today is clumsy day.
It is. What are you doing? That's a nice question there.
So here is my paler colour. I will answer that question in a minute. I'm just going to take a little bit of the darker one and mix those in, because then that way, if I do it from the darker paste, I can control what colour I'm coming out with better. And if I take one of the pumpkins I made earlier, yeah, that's about the same. We were doing the pumpkin. So, pumpkin, ball, cone tool, this one here, and I'm just going to plop that in the top like so. And then I'm going to take my Dresden tool, and instead of using the point, we're going to use the rib that goes all the way down the back of the Dresden tool there. And if I put this here, that will make it easier. So the rib all the way down the back. You're going to pop the point in there and just roll it all the way around the outside, and that gives you a perfect little pumpkin shape. And my pumpkins range from about the size of a £1 coin all the way up to a £2 coin, let's say, something like that. I mean, like, you can see how big my hand is, rough size. So that is how we get the lines on the pumpkin. And of course, pumpkins are all different shapes. You can squash him down a bit, we can plump him up, whatever you fancy. But the best bit about the pumpkins is the little twirl. So I've just got some green tape, and we're just going to twist it up. Just nice and tight. So there's nothing in there, it's just the tape. Actually, this is really long. I might trim this down. So actually, no, I won't. I'm not going to trim it down. I'm not. So make sure that it's nice and tight. And then I have a skewer, and I'm just going to wrap it around the skewer. Let's move that down because it's too much. There we go. Take that off. And then that is my twirly whirly little pumpkin vine. And all I did was fold it in half and straighten out that bit, because then I can poke that in the hole and then just use the end of my skewer or something to poke it in. You could dip some glue in there if you wanted to. I started that off with the glue earlier and then forgot, and actually it was all right. And then our pumpkin needs a little stalk. So we'll take another bit, it's what, 3 inches, give or take? Fold it in half and in half again, and then just twist it up so that you've just got a thicker bit. Ooh, tendrils, good word, Dawn. Thicker bit like this, just give it a really, really good twist. And then that ends up being longer than it actually needs to be. So I'm just going to chop it off. I'm going to chop it at an angle because then I've got a kind of pointy end, which I will shove down in there as well. And that is the pumpkin. Now we need to put him on a wire so that it can go into our arrangement. So I'm going to do this with a candle again. I have a piece of 24 gauge wire. I'm going to fold it in half and fold it in half really well. So I'm just going to use my pliers there to, you know, make it a really, what's the word? A tight fold.
Yeah.
And then bend it over so that you have about 1 centimetre at a right angle. What we're going to do is heat that up. So imagine this is the, if I had one of those fingers that could do that. I don't. Anyway, sorry. So we're going to heat it up. You need to hook it in and then twist it, right? And that is so that as it goes in and you twist, it's heating up the paste. That's going to keep it solid. And the fact that you're twisting it is what means that it then gets caught on itself, as opposed to if you just put it in and then it could slip out again because it's already made a channel on the way in. So it's going to go in and then twist round. So I shall hold the pumpkin and heat this up. Because it's thicker wire, you're going to need to hold it in the flame considerably longer. That should do it. So in and then twist, because that now you can, if you want, you can give that a little pinch there. But that is now, once it's set a little while, isn't going to go anywhere. And in fact, if I take, I don't need that anymore. So I made these in exactly the same way. Now the paper's come off that wire, but yeah, they're pretty solid. And where we folded it in half, of course, we've got the 2 bits of wire there, but we can just tape up that at the end. I'm going to do the pumpkins first, and for these I'm going to take, it's either going to be orange and white, or actually I might go orange and cream, because mixing it with the cream instead of the white is going to give us just a slightly muted tone to it. You should do, make sure the brush isn't too dirty. So we'll do cream and just a little bit of orange, because remember, we're not looking to sort of change the colour of the pumpkins, we just want to give them a little bit of shading and some tone there. So let's see. Oh yeah, look, that will work a treat. So just, I've got that slightly paler, well, paler than this, darker than that. In fact, it could be a little bit darker. I'm just going to come from the bottom up, just sort of vaguely following the lines on the pumpkin. Like that. And I think that will be just about it. We don't want too much on there. So we have the little roses as well. Which I think I'm just going to go, right, so I've got this sort of slightly paler orange here, which I'll try a bit on the underneath. I think just a little hint of that. So I'm just touching it on the edges and just drawing the colour in from the edge ever so slightly there. Again, it's just warming it up a bit and giving it a little bit of tone and depth. And do you know, I think that this might be it. I don't need too much.
What do you use to clean your brushes?
So I do it with a pot of corn flour. So if you just got like a little jar or whatever of corn flour and just swoosh the brush around in it lots, it will the corn flour will lift the colour off the bristles. Let's grab some blues. Now I think that royal blue, so this is part of the blue set, it's one of the non-edible but non-toxic ones, so you can use it on removable decorations, which of course anything with a wire in it is anyhow, but I think that with some white to blend that into a slightly paler blue should give us a nice colour to go on these. You can see the glorious thing about these is that as well as them being really quick to make, they're very quick to dust as well, because you don't need to focus on getting the edges or anything. You just sort of flicking the, that was a bit much there, but flicking the bristles over the edges and it will naturally catch in the sort of the peaks and the troughs of the petals and whatnot, so they kind of do them themselves. So I'm just going to tape the berries into some simple little branches, and let me grab a pink thing so you can actually see there. So I will start with 2 at the top, get the tape attached. This floral tape, which is sort of paper that is sort of crinkled when you take it off the roll, and inside the crinkles is some waxy stuff that when it gets warm is tacky. So I'm just bringing the tape down, as you can see, and we'll add on a couple of berries like so. Do one more here, and then I'll do another little branchy bit. So this time I might start it off with 1, get that tape attached, put one off at this angle, wrap the tape around, might add 2 in here. So pastel silver I want. Where are you, pastel silver? There it is. Which in truth is as much a pearl white as it is a pastel silver. It's a bit sparkly. I don't know what that called for a silly voice. Right. A little bit of rejuvenator fluid in there. Rejuvenator is, this might work, this might not. Oh yes, okay, I didn't know if the brush was going to be really dirty. So rejuvenator is ethanol. It's very, very high percentage alcohol, which means it dries really quickly. If you don't have any of that, then gin or vodka will do. You can use water, but it will just take a heck of a lot longer to dry, so you just need to be careful of it whilst it is drying. But rejuvenator is the best thing. Also, in some places it's called dipping solution. So that you can see a little coat of that, it's just giving them a very princessy shine. We're going to start with the largest bits, which are the roses. So that is my bigger rose, and here is the rosebud, and I'm just going to tilt him forwards, something like that. They look nice together there, I think. Might even bring that a little bit more forwards. Yeah, that'll do. So then I just need to, in fact, I get a cheat. I'm going to twist these wires together under here, because that will keep the 2 of them in position. And now I shall tape them. Guys, don't worry. I think, as ever, our government's being overconfident. Give it 6 months, we'll be back in lockdown again. Oh, God. Perish the thought, eh? Right, something along those lines. So that's those two positioned in the middle. But because they're all on wires, we can adjust things as we go along. I think it would be nice to have some pumpkins at the back as well as one at the front. So I'm going to do the same thing and just trim some of my green tape down to half. Or at least I will if I can get my fingers to work. Well, that was surprisingly difficult there. Because what I can do now, in fact the tiniest pumpkin can go at the top. So I'm just going to tape up his stem, because not only is that going to make his stem green, but it's attaching those two bits together. A person who had planned this better could of course have used green wire instead of white for the pumpkins, but never mind. And then I will take another pumpkin. I'm just going to tape this up as well. That's it. So now the question is if we can sort of bend and arrange this second pumpkin in such a way that it can sit like a pumpkin berry. So he's there. I'm going to bring him forwards and bend him back a little bit like that, so that for all that they are, they're going to be attached. They're both sitting like straight. It would be weird if it was off at an angle, if you get what I mean. And I'm just going to wrap the tape around. It's not terribly neat, but it doesn't matter for what it is that we're doing here. And I'll arrange all the tendrils afterwards, so we won't worry about that just now. And I think a third pumpkin on there, let's have this one, which is also fairly small, can come and sit. Right, what I want him to do is sit about here. So I need to bring this tape down a bit more because he's going to sit lower than I thought. So about, get it about there, that will work. Okay, now if I want these to come and sit somewhere up here, what I do need to do is make this longer. So I'm just going to, I'll do it with some 20 gauge wire, because that's nice and stiff, and the pumpkins, because there's 3 of them there, is quite heavy. So all I'll do is got a length of 20 gauge. I'm just going to hold it alongside the whole thing of pumpkins, and then just take the 2 bits together, sort of splint it on, literally like you would splint a leg. Alright, so those are our pumpkins, and then just, I feel like this will be easier while it's here. Let's arrange our pumpkin tendrils. Because they were all pointing the same direction, which looked a little odd. Okay, so that's that and that's that. So they want to go. I'm going to bend and bend again so that they will sit behind and to the, what is that, the left of the roses there. So again, let's wrap the tape. And do you know what? When I do these things on the Sunday, I tend to wrap the tape quite rough. A, because, well, time. B, because I just want things to be secured, and C, because the flower police aren't going to come and get me. And we can start to add in some of our little spangly berries. And I think that some of them should go round about here-ish behind the pumpkins. It was the little bird that did it, you know.
Messed you up.
Yeah, if it hadn't been for the little bird. Right. And then remember that we've got all of these much brighter blue bits too. So let's start bringing in some of these. So there and there perhaps. That's not really off to the left anymore, is it? Hang on. There we go. Pumpkins at the front, berries at the back. That's better.
Here I am stuck in the middle of you.
Poor long-suffering thing, eh?
What's this reference to the song?
You know, I know it was. I chose to ignore that. Right. Right, let's just whack out the full width tape. Just for sake of getting it attached. Right, so he is there. That one can stay up there. I feel like these little berries can come up and nestle somewhere round about in there, because I can bend everything again, you see. This is the nice thing about, because it's all on wires, we can adjust it all a little bit more. Because that keeps, that's it, it kept getting itself turned around. That's the front. I just need to remember which side is the front. Oh, bless you, for all that you're like, oh, it looks so delicate, and here I am clackety-clacking it around like nobody's business. It's alright. Right, so we've got a bit of blue peeking up there and here. Like so, and like I said, I know that this tape is a mess, but oh, I've got the big pumpkin for the bottom as well. Right, so hang on. I think if I do these ones here, and I saw Vasanthi said about like bending the wires. That's the most important thing. Think about where you want the thing to go, and then what shape it is that the wire needs to make so that it will fit around everything else. Right. And what I tend to do with things like this as well, you can see what a mess the tape is, because you can always go and tape it to make it neat afterwards. For now, it's just about making sure that everything stays attached where we want it. Let's tap a little bit of, that'll do. Right, now we want this to come and sit. Okay, so I'm going to do a weird bendy thing. I'm going to come forwards. Can you see the shape that that is under there? And actually, I would probably, in an ideal world, splint that wire with an extra bit, like a 20 gauge or something, just to make it a little bit stronger, but I won't do that just now. But that's for you guys if you have a go yourselves. So to hide that gap, I could pop in, yeah. Actually, do you know what? I've got two little flowers left. Let's use them both. So let's put one there. I've got this teeny tiny little one here. Where do I guys. I mean, it's definitely Cinderella-ish, I think. And I do like the colours on it, that's for sure.
Looks nice.
But yeah, so I like that. And I tell you what, guys, I've blooming enjoyed it because it has been ages since we have done a Disney and sort of made it up together as we go along like that. And I love it. I love doing it. So I hope you enjoyed that tutorial and enjoy making those super cute little pumpkins. And don't forget, give us a like and subscribe because then that way you'll be notified when we upload the next video. Take care.